am going over the fall 2020 semester, how the remote format will work. So this semester, flexibility is the key word for me. I have designed my course so that you can, I borrow heavily from the online version of this course, and if you choose, you could make it a fully asynchronous course, and it would be almost identical in the experience you would have in the online version, except you would be taking it over 14 weeks, or 15 weeks, I'm sorry. So you have that option of just getting, if you don't come to any of the classes, you don't lose any points. What happens is, instead of getting interactive feedback and chances to hear me correct other people's work and point out what they did well and ask me questions, you'll get rubrics through Blackboard. These are very detailed rubrics that are meant to help you spot where your problems are. You also will get some comments, not necessarily on every item, and Blackboard has recently improved their comment game, which makes my life a lot easier. You can also attach links to a Google Doc if you want to make, if you're interested in me making comments there, where it's a little easier for me to actually do some editing and make suggestions. You would still have to upload a PDF for records and plagiarism stuff. But even if you don't come to class, you're going to get a pretty good experience. If you do come to class, you're still going to be doing all of the discussion boards. And that's part of how you'll see in a moment I've kind of condensed class into 1 day a week. And that's partly because I'm having you do some of the things that used to happen in the background in class are put into the discussion boards. I've also cut a few things. I've really tried to focus on what's absolutely essential, because right now we all just are feeling a little crunched, and I'm not sure what else, we could have pretty smooth sailing. It could be more or less at this new normal, or things could get pretty rough for some or all of us. So I really planned this semester assuming that several of us would need flexibility during the semester. So this overview is meant to just kind of highlight some of the changes. In an ideal world, my kid will go to daycare, and I will, if it opens, it'll be September 1st, and I will spend the next couple weeks furiously making videos to update things like the module overviews, but I'm also being realistic that might not happen. I may have to prioritize my time differently. So I'm going to try to give you a little bit of a heads up of what, if you are using the old module overviews with my purple glasses, kind of letting you know what might be different there. The biggest change is I talk a lot about reading groups, and for this semester at least, I've gotten rid of them. I may bring them back in the future. I think they do encourage reading and engaging with the material, but every time when I ask students, what do you think are kind of the fluffiest parts of the course, reading groups is one of the most common things that they say. So if I need to cut, that's where I'm going to cut. Let's see. And you'll notice if you're looking at details like how many points things are worth from the videos, you'll notice some of the discussions are worth a lot more points, because when I get rid of things, those points have to go somewhere, because I really like building my classes out of 1,000 points. So if you go through, here's the syllabus, and I need to change how it opens. Can I? Yes, I want to do that. We'll see if it worked. Yes. So the syllabus here, I'm not signed in, so I like doing my syllabi on Google Docs for a few reasons. One, I think it's really easy to access from anywhere, but also it's easy for me to add in clarifications, to adjust things. So you can see here, and the syllabus is very, very similar if you're in the Monday, Wednesday, or the Tuesday, Thursday class. In fact, almost everything is, so I'm making this video for both classes. So there'll be a few times that I talk about how those classes, the due dates will be slightly different. One nice thing is we don't have as many holidays as usual, and so the schedule isn't as thrown off by that. You'll notice in the syllabus, so some things are yellow. Those are usually either really important or, more often, something that I have to remember to update from semester to semester. A few things to point out. So I'm Dr. Parikh. You can, I go by Dr. Parikh, Professor Parikh, Dr. P, any of that's fine. And my pronouns are she, her. my email address, and if you, rather than give out my phone number for texting in emergencies, I have made myself available in a few other ways. You can use Google Chat to reach out to me. That comes up on my phone just like a text message. Sorry, this table moves. I have all these tiny offices set up through the house to try to hide from my toddler. And so this is a cheap table from IKEA that we bought in 2014. Yeah. So anyway, so it moves every time my arms hit it, and my computer is propped up on 2 game boxes. Yeah, super fancy setup here. So you can use Google Chat if you have something short and quick that you'd like a faster response to. You can also, my office phone is set to forward to my mobile phone. So you're welcome to call my office phone. Just be aware of timing, because you're not leaving me a voicemail. You are actually calling my cell phone. Email, anytime, doesn't matter. That does not make a sound on my phone. The Google Chat, I think, makes a sound, so that I would prefer be more during 8 a.m. to 9 or 10 p.m. And phone, certainly I would like to be in that kind of 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. range, unless we have an appointment to talk. Office hours, I haven't set them yet. I'm waiting to see if I have firm childcare. If I don't, then office hours are probably going to be pushed more to the evenings after my son's in bed. And they might have to change in the middle of the semester, either because my childcare needs change, or if I notice that most students are needing other times anyway, sometimes I'll just change my office hours to be more available in those times. I do ask that you schedule an appointment just in case, because I'm kind of assuming that all of us are going to have more personal emergencies this semester. So if I do have an emergency, I always try to check my calendar and send messages to anyone I was supposed to meet with. So if I don't know that you're planning to come, I can't give you that message. What else is, so everything that's in pink is not going to be in the syllabus video. There's a couple linked documents, and I'll show you how to use them. The first is the modules to-do list. This is adapted from the online version of the course. The online version, each module is a week. It's neat and clean, and I can put, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for the assignments. For this class, it's a little messier, and I have 2 sections with 2 different sets of due dates. And I'm aware that something may push some of those due dates back because a lot of weird stuff might happen. So I have not committed in any of these documents to what the due dates are. This is just kind of what assignments are in this module. Instead, I really would like you to use here under calendars. You see there's the module to-do list. That's what we're in. There's also Blackboard Calendar is the most reliable for seeing the actual due dates. And so you can see exactly what's due and when. And this view is just showing kind of the times, but if you expand it a little more, you can see more of what's happening. So the module to-do list helps you see what videos are coming up, and you can use it as a checklist. If you want to use it as a checklist and cross things off, just hit make a copy, save it in your drive, because if you make any changes to the main version, everyone can see it. There's a couple spots around, especially around like modules 4 and 5, where there's a little overlap. So be careful not to go directly through this. The weeks aren't completely neat because I had to make just kind of the logic of meeting once a week is a little different from the way things flow online. The other thing that's linked to here, this remote meeting schedule, it outlines how our remote meetings are going to work. And what the schedule is, kind of when we're meeting and what the focus is. For each class, I've picked 1 day a week to meet, and I've picked it in part, it's the first day that we meet for class, and so then we just keep a nice, week apart. But also, I was trying to strategize to have the most backup childcare possible, so that if Plan A falls through, I still have Plan B. So we'll meet once a week. The other day is meant to give you time to do all of the videos and the online discussions and all of those things. So even if you come to class, you're going to do all the discussion board posts and responses. But that kind of interactive stuff is what would normally happen that other day of the week in class, or it kind of balances the time out. In class, we will review these assignments. Review meaning I want you to walk in the door, metaphorically. I want you to join the chat with those assignments completed and turned in Blackboard. So it's a flipped classroom model where you watch videos and do the work outside of class, and then you get meaningful feedback inside of class. The early assignments have very generously scaled rubrics, so that you can have lots of mistakes and still get most of the credit for the assignment. And again, if you don't attend class, you'll get a rubric in Blackboard later. If you do attend class, you get the chance to ask for clarification. You get more precision, and I'm more likely to offer, to kind of suggest how to fix things, because I really see that as a teaching moment. You also are going to get feedback in a group setting, and I'll try to cap out the groups at 6 to 8. So if I had maybe 10. So if the entire class wants to come, I'll try to divide things up into smaller groups so that you're not having to sit through that many other papers, because there's a point where it gets so repetitive that it's not as helpful. But also so that you hopefully don't feel quite as exposed. There is a lot of vulnerability expected here, but I think, and I've heard students reinforce that there is value in watching and seeing other people's work and seeing me highlight what they did well and show how they could address some of the weaknesses. So it's vulnerability, it's risk, but I also think it's a great way to grow. It's how I personally have grown as a writer over time. There's also a few times where we don't meet as much because we are using that class time for individual meetings. And with it being remote, if you kind of email me and explain a little bit of why you can't meet, I would be open to recording a video for you. But I think those individual meetings are really much more powerful. And those are about half an hour individual meetings. And I open up as many time options as I can. So for the Monday, Wednesday, I'll also point out for both of this date here is just the Monday of the week. It's just kind of specifying which week we're in. So for Monday, Wednesday, it's identical except the columns are flipped and we're meeting on Wednesdays. And again, it's really, it lends itself to when our first day of class is going to be, but it also is just logistically to let me have backup childcare. There is a possibility, depending on how much, if we have this perfect, not perfect storm, but this perfect coming together of lots and lots of people want to be meeting in class, and I have really reliable childcare, we may be able to divide it up and meet, twice a week. But the time that I spend, right now I'm kind of assuming that about half the students are probably going to want to just get feedback on Blackboard. And so that's how I'm going to spend this other day. That kind of breaks up the time for me. Another thing, you don't have to particularly commit to doing completely, you don't have to tell me, I don't want to come to class, or I do want to come to class. It's going to be more of just, whoever shows up, we deal with it. And if we run out of time and people can't stay or I can't stay, then we just move on. Or just, whoever was left gets feedback through rubrics and comments later. And next time, those people get priority to be seen. If we do end up in that perfect situation where we start meeting twice a week, in that case, I would assign students a day, just because it doesn't make much sense if 12 people show up on one day and only 4 show up the other day. That doesn't really help us that much. So if we split up into 2 days, I would need to assign students to days. But otherwise, if we're just meeting once a week, you don't need to tell me you're coming or not coming. Just show up if you can show up, and if not, whoever didn't get feedback during class will get feedback later. See, so this just talks about how I'm going to sort of what the pink highlighting is. I also, for scheduling, I'm planning to use Google Meets. I may end up using, my brain just stopped working. Zoom lets me do breakout groups a little bit easier, so I might use it for that at some point, but my plan is to use Google Meets And one of the things I like is I can just make sort of an email list and then invite everybody through the calendar, and then you can have the link right there. It gets emailed to you. So that's most likely what I'm going to do. Even if you're not required to come to class, attendance is not something I'm going to track for this course because you're already getting participation grades through the discussion boards. That's already capturing a lot of points based on your interactions with each other. I do expect that you're going to be interacting at least once a week, usually more like 2 to 3 times. If something is going to keep you from interacting with the course, even if you don't usually come to class, if it's more than 1 or 2 assignments that's going to be a problem, it really does help if you reach out to me ahead of time. Exceptions are going to be on a case-by-case basis. If you can document things through student life, that helps a lot. But I can't try to help if you don't reach out to me, particularly if students are affected by illness or other kind of side effects, or if you fall behind. I can help you get caught back up. I can kind of help you make a plan. Even things like just prioritizing and going through and saying, okay, this assignment isn't that many points and it doesn't affect many things. Let's skip that one. This one is either critical for later stuff or is worth a lot of points, so why don't you do that one first? So even just helping you cut through what to do to just get by can be helpful. I do think you should come to class if you can, but if you don't come to class, I really think the online experience is still a good one, and that's essentially what you'll get. And if we're ever meeting if I'm ever recording a Hangout, it's useful to say something in chat just in case. Again, this semester I'm not, for this class, participation or attendance doesn't really affect your grade, but it's still useful to have just a record that you were there. So if I'm recording, it's nice to say something in the chat. For online meetings, it's helpful to find a space that is calm and well lit if possible. So right now you can see I'm recording after 9 o'clock. My kid happens to not be home right now. He's with his grandparents, but it would be safely after his bedtime. I have very bright lights on. This is actually probably some of the best lighting in the house for recording. And I purposely have my desk turned so that my back is to the wall to make a little bit more calm of a space. You can see the edge of a picture. It's a picture one of my nephews did of my son when he was, I think, 9 months old. But other than that, I tried to make it a really simple, plain background. So to me, this is the ideal, and I've, propped my laptop up on a couple game boxes so that it's a nice eye level, doesn't give any more double chin than it has to. I'm using headphones to try to get a better sound. When you're in especially a chat with more than 5 or so people, it's really helpful to mute yourself anytime you're not actively talking back and forth with someone, especially if there's noise in your background. So that's the ideal, is that you'll be on video, you'll be in a calm place, you'll have a calm background, and you'll have headphones, and you'll be mostly muted. I also recognize that we don't always have a lot of options. I've already talked, this is my second run trying to record this, so I don't know if I've talked or not, but if my child is ever home when I'm recording, or when I'm video chatting, he will probably be on screen. Even if there are multiple other adults in the house to care for him, he can smell unavailability and he will come see what I'm doing. And we found that for the most part, if we just let him crawl in our laps, wave hi to our friends, and just kind of play near us for a little bit, that's usually enough and he'll let us focus. So if my kid is home, you're probably going to see him at some point. I know Dr. Sitnick, almost every time I've been on a video chat with her, there's been at least one cat that comes on camera. And so kids, pets, other family members, sometimes you need to be in a high traffic zone of your house. And so, things are going to happen that there will be distractions. You may not have a nice, simple, plain color background that you can sit against and have something to hold your tablet or computer or whatever. So I also recognize you just can't always be on video, but try to at least sometimes be on video, on audio. But you can also, it's harder to do chat only for this class because when I'm giving feedback, a back and forth is really what's needed. But there's been a few times where someone just couldn't, their sound wouldn't work or their mic wouldn't work, and we could kind of make it work with, I would ask a lot of yes or no questions. Yeah, so I don't know if I have any crossovers where people have me for multiple classes this semester. My other courses, sometimes I do where I've set it up where class time is equal to doing responses on a discussion board. And so if you come to class, you only have to do your initial post in the discussion board. This is not that way. This one, your initial the discussion board is completely separate from class time. Office hours, I've already talked about these things. Google Chat. So I talked through the syllabus in general elsewhere, so I'm really trying to just focus on pandemic and remote learning related issues. So the total points are the same, but the breakdown discussions, those might have stayed pretty similar actually. But again, anything else you see for this course that's an older video is probably going to talk about reading groups. I may go back to those in the future, but for this semester I've dropped them just to try to drop the workload a little bit. Assignments, I did it for my in-person classes last semester as well. I've changed the way you're doing the methods and results section. I have some other videos that talk about that are kind of the update videos. I apologize that there's this weird thing where there's so many like updates to the update, but it's just where I am. I cannot possibly re-record the entire class right now. I just have too many other things trying to convert all of my classes as best I can to remote learning. But if you're ever confused, you can always email me for clarification. And so these are the same documents that were linked earlier. I tend to link things in multiple places because it's kind of like I want it to be wherever I think somebody might be looking for it, I try to stick it there. Sometimes that's a little confusing to get used to because you're like, but wait, I thought I found it somewhere else last time. Maybe you did. You can also find it here in this navigation bar. So you've got calendar, which is the best way to find due dates. Meeting schedule, which is to remember which day of the week we're meeting on, and to see what we're going over that day. So we don't go over every assignment. We go over most of them, but not quite everyone. And then the module to-do list, which is not perfectly timed, but does cover all of the assignments. There's weekly modules. Again, these might be a little imperfect. And I've linked to the calendar again and the module to-do list, but you can go in and see. So this is just kind of describing what we're working on in this unit or module. Here, let me see, this is pretty accurate. Some of these might have slightly out-of-date video lists. And learning activities, these days of the week, I don't know that I'm going to get around to fixing these. I may try to take out these days of the week. I had days of the week in lots of spots to be helpful, and I've had to take them out, and it's a lot of time, and yeah. When I try to make things too helpful and structured, it makes it really hard to change anything. But it goes through, and it's roughly the order that they're doing, maybe not perfectly the order that they're doing, but again, if you're ever worried about due dates, just go to Blackboard Calendar. I'm going to make this a little wider for a moment so you can see. It's not, you make it just a little bit wider, and it's pretty easy to see what's due when. And if you wanted, on your own version of the to-do list, you can always mark the days of the week and things, but do it at your own risk, because if things go a little wonky, I might start pushing things later. I might start taking some things out. I've cut the corks down quite a bit, but if there's an emergency, I may have to cut it down even more. Discussion board. One thing that's going to be set kind of last minute is small groups. Usually I assign those through reading group roles. So you might see in the videos, I might show you a spreadsheet that I use for it or something. But since we're not doing reading roles, when I assign small groups, I'll probably just edit this description to include the names of sort of who's in group A, B, and C. But I have to wait until the last minute because there's often a lot of adding and dropping right before the beginning of class. So that's why that's not done yet. But you can go through and see all of these are here. And there's no reading roles, which cuts down a bit on that stuff. Some of these here you won't see. I have them, I didn't quite want to get rid of them, but I did hide them because they're more to do with the online version of the course. I think. One other thing that's different is I've formalized this year under bonus opportunities. There's a new one. I wonder if I can move it now. I couldn't move it earlier. Oh, I can move it now. I'll move it up because it's the first one. Student info sheet. So this is something I typically do, but it's always kind of an afterthought in an email and a weird where do the bonus points go. Oh, that's annoying. I forget my password. Here we go. So you have to sign in using your Caldwell email. That's how it knows who you are. There's a lot of questions on here. Only the ones with the asterisks are required to submit it and get points. Please let me know whatever you prefer to be called, whether it's a nickname or a different name. Please let me know how to pronounce it. And some people with pretty typical names, you may have never had to think, or typical, English American names, you may have never had to think about how to tell someone how to phonetically pronounce your name. But I think it's pretty good practice to think about how someone from a different place might need help pronouncing. I like photos. It helps me kind of picture you, and especially, normally it helps me match people up, but even if you're off camera, it helps me feel a little more personal. That's also why I try to include video in my uploads. I really didn't want to today, but I also think that with remote teaching, that face-to-face connection, it's harder for me because I'm sneaking videos in here and there, but I think it's also really important. So there's a lot of other questions. But you only have to answer the ones with the asterisk. So I'm just gonna enter, and it doesn't measure how long your answer is. It just sees that you've picked something. And then you have to pick your classes. And then the last thing that I ask you to tell me is, how do you think the pandemic will affect your ability to be the student you want to be? It's up to you what you tell me here. It's whatever you tell me is between me and you, unless it's a safety risk. But in general, it's certainly not something I'm going to share with others in the class. And it's really just, I find it helpful to have a sense of what sorts of barriers you're dealing with. It helps me plan. It helps me notice what things might be that I thought would be pretty reasonable and easy to do are actually going to be really hard to do. It's just really helpful for me. But also, it's up to you what you want to enter. So if you want to just go and that's all you want to tell me, that's fine. The form will accept it. So once you do it, the second part is to go in here and say, you can even just say you could even type that, I don't care that much. But you could say completed or completed with photo, because I give you 5 points for doing it and an extra 5 points for including a photo. So it really doesn't take terribly long. You can do, as much or as little detail as you want in the form, and it just helps me get to know you. So when you submit this, it says it's at a 0. That's so that if you don't do it, it doesn't look like you missed an assignment, like it doesn't count against your percentage, because Blackboard is weird about how the percentages work. I think that's it. I know that this is a lot. I try to be really thorough in my videos, which sometimes is hard because then you zone out and miss the few things you need to know. yeah, I think everything else, online tutoring. I assume that the Writing Center is going to do remote sessions again. And there's also Smart Thinking, which is an online service. Some of my older videos, I'm a bit skeptical of it, but I've had students have reporting increasingly positive experiences with them. And being, some students will say, well, I would have preferred to use the Writing Center, but it just didn't work out, and this was still pretty good. Other students seem to kind of prefer it, say, yep, this is convenient, I like it, I'm going to stick with it. I feel like I got good feedback. Because there are twice in the semester that I require you to do tutoring, and then there's more, certainly you can use it more than that. All right, I think I'm going to wrap up for this video. As I said, I may do more detailed module by module videos, but that's going to be a lower priority because partly I have some classes that I need to record my lectures for to give that sort of synchronous, asynchronous flexibility, and just other things I have to get in place. So it just really depends how much time I get to work and how much time these other tasks take me. If I don't get to re-record modules, remember this module to-do list will help you see what is still required, so you can see what you still need to do. So again, there'll be discussion posts that say reading roles, you don't need to do those, and there's some stuff with the method and results section that you don't need to do. All right, I think that's it. If you have any questions, please let me know. I am working really, really hard to convert all this in a way that makes sense, but I also acknowledge that there's going to be mistakes and there's going to be things that aren't very clear. And so if something seems weird, please let me know. Maybe it's fine and I can just explain to you why it's fine, but it may be off and I may be able to correct it to avoid confusing other people. Take good care of yourselves, and I look forward to interacting with you.